Under the golden glare of the Lagos skyline, billionaire industrialist Kelechi Okoro was a man the world admired and secretly feared. His empire stretched from oil rigs in the Delta to skyscrapers in Johannesburg. To the public, he was the image of success. Sharp suits, private jets, and the kind of confidence that made other men shrink in the shadow. But behind those eyes of marble calm, Kelechi harbored one poisonous fear, the fear of betrayal. He had grown up watching his father, once a rich man, destroyed by a woman's deceit. His mother had vanished with another man, leaving him and his father broken and penniless. That wound festered inside him, twisting his view of love until it became a battlefield of suspicion. So when Kelechi married Amara, a humble schoolteacher from Enugu, the world was shocked. They called her the Cinderella of Nigeria. Her beauty was quiet, her laughter gentle, and her heart pure. She never cared for his wealth, only for the man behind it. For years, she stood by his side through storms of boardroom wars and scandals that would have crushed other marriages. Yet, deep inside Kelechi's mind, a question refused to die. Would she still love me if I lost it all? And so, one fateful morning, he decided to find out. He crafted a test so cruel, so elaborate, that even his most loyal advisor, Chief Durji, warned him, "Sir, you are playing with fire. No love survives deliberate deceit." But Kelechi only smiled faintly. If it's real love, it will survive anything. That night, he told Amara that his company had been investigated for tax fraud and frozen by the government. He said all his assets had been seized, his accounts drained, his properties confiscated. He claimed he was ruined, penniless, disgraced, and shunned by society. The next morning, he left the mansion in a tattered shirt, pretending he had been stripped of everything. He wanted to see if Amara would follow him into the ashes. For days, she searched for him, confused and heartbroken, until she found him living in a small, crumbling apartment in Mushin. When she entered, her eyes welled up not with pity, but love. She knelt before him and said softly, "Kelechi, I married you, not your wealth. If we must start over from nothing, then we will. Together." For a moment, guilt flickered through him, but pride buried it quickly. He needed to push her further, to see if her loyalty could withstand not only poverty, but temptation. Weeks passed. Amara worked tirelessly at a local school to provide for them both. She sold her jewelry to buy food. She stood in line at the market, bartered for bread, and cooked with her own hands. But Kelechi, still hiding behind his false poverty, watched her silently from the shadows, feeding his paranoia. One evening, a man named Tund, a wealthy philanthropist and longtime admirer of Amara, came to the school to make a donation. He recognized her instantly and was shocked to see her in such humble condition. Out of concern, he offered her help, money, food, even a job. Amara refused politely at first, but Tund's persistence grew. When Kelechi heard of this, he decided to use it as the final stage of his test. Through a trusted associate, he arranged for Tund to offer her an expensive gift, a check for 5 million naira, and then report back. If she accepted it, even out of desperation, Kelechi would know his answer. The next day, when Tund presented the check, Amara's hands trembled. She looked at the money, then at Tund. "Do you think money can heal a man's pride? Or erase his pain?" she asked softly. Then she tore the check in half, her eyes burning with quiet strength. "Tell your friend, whoever he is, that I would rather starve with my husband than dine with a stranger's generosity." Those words should have filled Kelechi's heart with peace, but instead, they shattered him, because in that moment, he realized she had passed every test. Yet the damage was already done. Amara began to notice strange inconsistencies. The bills that were mysteriously paid, the neighbors who treated her too kindly, the landlord who suddenly stopped asking for rent. Her heart whispered suspicions she didn't want to believe. Until one night, while cleaning their small room, she found an old envelope addressed to Chief Kelechi Okoro. Her hands froze. The man she thought she was struggling beside was still the billionaire. When Kelechi returned home that night, she was waiting for him. Candlelight flickered across her tear-streaked face. She said nothing as he entered, only handed him the envelope, For the first time in his life, Kelechi felt true fear, not of losing wealth, but of losing her. Amara, please, let me explain. Explain what? She interrupted, her voice trembling but firm. That you didn't trust me? That you thought I loved your money more than you? She stepped closer, her eyes sharp as glass. You made me live in hunger, humiliation, and pain, all because you wanted to prove something to yourself. He reached for her hands, but she pulled away. You tested my love, Kelechi, and now you've lost it. Amara walked out that night, carrying nothing but her dignity. Days turned to weeks, and silence filled Kelechi's mansion like a curse. He sent people to find her, but she vanished without a trace. His empire, once built on control and cunning, began to crumble under the weight of his guilt. His board resigned, his investors fled, and his mind became his greatest enemy. He donated millions to charity, built schools in her name, and even funded the same village she grew up in. But none of it filled the emptiness. Years later, he found her again, this time teaching under a tree in a small rural school. Her hair had streaks of gray now, but her smile was still gentle, the same one that once melted his arrogance. He approached her slowly, his eyes heavy with regret. Amara, he whispered, I was a fool. She looked at him quietly, then turned back to the children. Saying nothing, he stood there, waiting for forgiveness that never came. Because some wounds, once inflicted, don't heal with time. They simply harden into lessons. And as the sun dipped behind the village hills, Kelechi finally understood the truth. Love cannot be tested, only trusted. He walked away that evening, the sound of her laughter echoing faintly in the distance, a reminder of the empire he lost, not to business rivals or fate, but to his own mistrust. But fate had one more twist waiting for him. As Kelechi walked away from that village school, his chest felt hollow, his steps uncertain. Each footfall sank deep into the dusty red earth, as though the land itself wanted to hold him there, to make him face the weight of what he had done. The laughter of the children behind him drifted, like a haunting melody, pulling at something buried deep in his soul. He paused under a withered mango tree, looking back once more. Amara was still there, surrounded by children, their eyes bright and eager. She looked alive in a way she never did when she lived in his marble palace. He had given her wealth, comfort, and status, yet she had never been freer than she was now. And he, the man who owned everything, had never been poorer. In the days that followed, he returned to the city like a ghost. The once bustling Okoro Holdings Tower stood cold and empty. His portrait still hung in the lobby, but the gleam in his painted eyes mocked him. The world had moved on. New names filled the headlines. The man who once shaped markets was now a forgotten rumor. At night, he sat alone in his penthouse, staring at the skyline, haunted by the echo of her voice. Every luxury around him felt like a prison. His bed, once shared, was vast and silent. The ticking of the clock became unbearable, each second slicing through the silence like a blade. He tried to bury himself in charity, in redemption. He funded orphanages, built hospitals, sponsored scholarships. But every act of kindness only reminded him of the woman who had embodied the very thing he had destroyed, genuine compassion. One evening, while reviewing the foundation's reports, his secretary entered timidly. Sir, there's a request from a rural school for support. They need funds for new classrooms. He didn't look up at first. Where? Umuahia district, she said softly. The pen dropped from his hand. That was Amara's village. He closed the file, his pulse quickening. Approve it, he said after a moment. But anonymously, from that day, he made it a secret mission to uplift everything connected to her. The school received supplies, new uniforms, and a library. A clinic was built nearby. Yet Kelechi stayed in the shadows, watching from afar like a man trying to rewrite the past without being seen. Months passed. Then one morning, he saw a news feature about the same school. The journalist spoke of a mysterious donor funding rural education. And there she was, Amara, standing before the cameras, smiling as she spoke to the children. She is rebuilding lives, the reporter said. Her story reminds us that love and kindness are more powerful than any fortune. Kelechi's throat tightened. He wanted to reach through the screen, to tell her everything, that he was the donor, that he was trying to atone. But some part of him knew that revealing himself would only wound her again. Still, fate is rarely kind to those who seek forgiveness too late. A few weeks later, during a business conference in Abuja, he overheard two men talking. That teacher from Umuahia, the one who runs the charity schools. She's being recognized by the government. One of them said, "They're giving her an award for community service." Kelechi felt a strange mix of pride and sorrow swell in his chest. She had built something beautiful from the ruins of their love. That night, unable to resist, he traveled to Umuahia again. The ceremony was being held in the town hall. He sat quietly at the back, unnoticed among the crowd. The air was warm and thick with applause as Amara walked the stage. She spoke with grace, her voice steady. "When I lost everything I thought I needed," she said, "I discovered what truly matters: dignity, faith, and compassion. Love is not about proving worth. It's about trust. And trust, once broken, leaves a scar no wealth can cover." Her words struck him like thunder. He felt his chest tighten until breathing hurt. The hall erupted in applause, but Kelechi remained seated, frozen in the back row, clapping silently as tears burned behind his eyes. After the event, as the crowd dispersed, he stood at a distance, watching her greet people. She looked radiant, strong, fulfilled. But when her gaze swept the crowd, their eyes met for the briefest second. Recognition flickered across her face, followed by something deeper, sadness, maybe pity, but not hate. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to smile, a small, broken thing. He turned to leave before she could say anything, vanishing into the night. The drive back to Lagos was long and heavy. He replayed her speech over and over in his mind, each word a quiet dagger of truth. When he reached his mansion, he didn't go inside. Instead, he walked down to the garden where the roses she once planted had long withered. He sat there, staring at the empty soil, remembering how she used to hum softly while tending to them. He whispered to the wind, "You were the only truth I ever had." But the wind carried no answer, only silence. The next morning, his lawyer brought him news. "Sir, about your will," the man began, nervously flipping through papers. "You mentioned wanting to revise it?" Kelechi nodded absently. "Yes. Transfer half of my remaining assets to the Amara Foundation. Let her decide what to do with it." No name, no announcement. The lawyer hesitated. "She may never know it was you." Kelechi looked out the window, eyes distant. That's the point. Weeks turned into months. His health began to decline, a quiet erosion from years of sleepless nights and unhealed guilt. The doctors urged him to rest, but he refused. He said he had things left unfinished. Sometimes he would dream of her voice calling his name, soft and forgiving. Other times, he would see her walking away again, fading into the distance no matter how fast he chased. One evening, as rain lashed against the city, Kelechi stood by the window, staring at the skyline that once defined his power. Lightning flickered, casting brief shadows across his face. He thought of all the years he had spent building empires of stone, only to realize that the only empire worth having was the one built in someone's heart, and he had destroyed it with his own hands. His phone buzzed on the table. A message blinked from an unknown number. It was a photo, Amara with a group of children, holding a new signboard that read, "Okoro Learning Center." Below it, a message, "I know it was you. Thank you." Kelechi's breath caught. He sank into his chair, clutching the phone like it was the last thing tethering him to life. He wanted to reply, to tell her he didn't deserve even that gratitude. But before he could type, another message appeared. "You were wrong about love. It never failed you. You just didn't believe in it." His eyes blurred as the rain outside grew heavier, merging with the tears that finally escaped. For the first time, he didn't fight them. He typed slowly, "I believe now." But he never pressed send, because at that very moment, thunder cracked across the sky, and everything went still. In the quiet that followed, the city lights flickered faintly, like candles in a storm, each one whispering of second chances he no longer knew how to reach. And somewhere, far away in Umuahia, Amara looked out her classroom window, the wind rustling the papers on her desk, as if carrying the ghost of memory she could never quite forget. The rain had stopped, leaving the world in that quiet, shimmering stillness that follows a storm. In Lagos, the night glowed faintly with the reflection of streetlights against wet asphalt. From a window of his high-rise apartment, Kelechi Okoro sat motionless, staring into the horizon as if searching for something beyond the skyline, something that no wealth, no empire, no power could ever return to him. His fingers still rested on the phone that carried Amara's last message. Her words played again in his mind, soft but unrelenting. You were wrong about love. It never failed you. You just didn't believe in it. That sentence lingered like a haunting melody. He had built kingdoms out of suspicion, crafted walls out of pride, and called it wisdom. But now, stripped of everything, he saw how fragile all of it had been. His billions had bought him everything except peace. His intelligence had won wars and business, but lost him the only heart that truly mattered. The city outside pulsed with life. Cars honking, laughter from passing lovers, the rhythm of existence continuing as if mocking his loneliness. He closed his eyes, and in the darkness, her face appeared again. Amara, the way she used to laugh under the mango tree, her eyes soft but strong, her voice calm even in his storms. He remembered how she used to place her hand on his chest and whisper, "One day, your heart will learn that love isn't a test, it's a trust." He hadn't understood it then. Now it was too late. The next morning, Kelechi rose before dawn. For the first time in years, he put on simple clothes, no silk, no gold watch, no designer shoes. Just a plain shirt and trousers. He got into his car and drove for hours, leaving behind the city that had made and unmade him. He passed the factories he once owned, the billboards that once bore his name. None of it mattered anymore. His hands, once trembling from ambition, were steady now, guided by something different, a quiet resolve. By afternoon, he arrived at the same village school in Umuahia. The sight hit him like a wave. Children ran barefoot across the dusty courtyard, laughing freely, their joy uncontained. In the distance, beneath the same old tree, Amara stood, speaking to a group of young girls. Her hair had more silver streaks now, but her presence still radiated the kind of strength that humbled him. She looked content, fulfilled in ways he had never managed to be. He didn't approach immediately. He watched her for a long time, almost afraid that his presence might disturb the peace she had built. Finally, as the children began to disperse, he took a deep breath and walked forward. When she turned and saw him, her expression froze for a heartbeat. Then she spoke, her voice even. "You came back." "Yes," he said quietly. "I don't even know why I waited this long." She nodded slightly, her gaze unreadable. "You look different." "I finally learned how to lose," he murmured. "And I think that's what made me human again." A small silence followed, filled with the rustling of leaves and distant laughter. Then he said, "I saw the message you sent, the one about love not failing me. You were right, Amara. I failed love, not the other way around." Her eyes softened, but she said nothing. He took a small step closer. "I don't expect forgiveness. I know I burned that bridge long ago. But I wanted to see you once more to say thank you for everything, for teaching me what no amount of money ever could." Amara looked at him for a long moment, her expression shifting from pain to something almost like peace. "You hurt me, Kelechi," she said quietly, "but I healed. And sometimes healing is the best kind of forgiveness." He bowed his head. "Then I'll carry that as my redemption." She looked past him at the horizon, where the setting sun spilled gold across the sky. "Do you ever wonder," she asked softly, "what our lives would have been like if you hadn't tested me?" "Every day," he admitted. "And every time I do, I realize I destroyed the one thing that could have saved me." For a while, neither spoke. The air was thick with memories, ones that still ached but no longer burned. Then Amara said, almost to herself, "Maybe everything had to happen this way. Maybe your fall was the only way for you to see what truly matters." Kelechi smiled faintly, the first genuine smile in years. "Maybe, but I wish I hadn't learned the lesson so late." She turned to face him fully then, her eyes calm and clear. "It's never too late to live differently," she said. "You can still use your life to make others better." That's what love does. It gives, even after loss. Her words settled deep inside him. For the first time, he didn't feel the ache of regret as a punishment, but as a purpose. He looked around at the children, the humble classrooms, the spirit of hope that filled the air. "You've built something beautiful here," he said. "Something real." Amara smiled, and for a fleeting second, the distance between them seemed to fade. "I built it from pain," she said. "Pain can destroy or it can create. The choice is always ours." He nodded slowly. "Then let me help you build more. Not for redemption, not for recognition, just because it's the right thing to do." Amara studied him quietly. "If that's truly what you want, then start by rebuilding trust. Not with me, but with the world you forgot to care about." He understood. She wasn't giving him a second chance at their love. She was giving him a chance to do something with that love. That night, Kelechi didn't return to Lagos. He stayed in the village, sleeping in a small guest room beside the school. He woke up at dawn to the sound of children reciting morning prayers, and something within him stirred, an emotion that felt foreign yet familiar. Peace. Days turned into weeks. He began helping around the school, fixing broken desks, painting walls, planting trees. The villagers whispered, some recognizing him, others doubting their eyes. The once mighty billionaire now walked barefoot through red dust, laughing with children, eating cassava by firelight. One afternoon, a young boy approached him shyly. "Sir, are you really the man who built all those tall buildings in Lagos?" Kelechi chuckled softly. "I was. But these days, I prefer to build smaller things, like hope." The boy grinned, not understanding fully, but smiling anyway. That evening, Amara watched from the classroom window as Kelechi helped a group of boys repair a broken swing. For the first time in years, she saw not the powerful man who tested her, but the humbled one who had finally learned what it meant to love without control. As the sun dipped low, she walked toward him. "You've changed," she said quietly. He looked up at her, sweat on his brow, but peace in his eyes. "No," he said softly. "I just became who you believed I could be." Their eyes met in silence. There was no promise of rekindled love, no grand gesture, only understanding, deep and wordless. Sometimes that was enough. And as the evening breeze swept through the schoolyard, carrying the sound of children's laughter, Kelechi realized that life had given him something more precious than a second chance at romance. It had given him meaning. He looked up at the fading sky and whispered to himself, maybe this is what wealth was always supposed to be. The world around him seemed to breathe again. The sky turned orange, the earth smelled of rain, and for the first time in his life, Kelechi Okoro felt rich, not in gold, not in fame, but in truth.